Thank you. I have the pleasure of offering some welcome comments. So I'd like to welcome the students, staff, faculty, school committee members, community members, and our guest speakers to Ponaganset Remembers, a tribute to the 9/11 fallen. This project has made possible as part of a grant from the Rhode Island Foundation. The Foundation's Community Grants Program provides grants for community-making efforts that foster unique and important things to happen at this intersection. A special thanks to Chris Stanley for his vision and for all the teachers, staff, administrators, and community members who donated their time, energy, and resources to make this event a reality. This would not have been possible without a strong community-wide effort. Many thanks to the Foster and Gloucester police officers, fire and rescue personnel for their ongoing support. We truly appreciate their partnership. We do truly appreciate the partnership with our local first responders and their colleagues from across the state. Whenever I speak in public, I always introduce myself as the proud superintendent of the Foster Gloucester Regional Schools. For those of you visiting Ponaganset High School for the first time, you're getting to see a small glimpse of why that's true. The Ponaganset family works hard to educate the whole child and to create an inclusive school culture and to prepare young men and young women with the character and foundation to be successful in college and careers. Our school's trademark is start here and go big. It is clear our school's community has consistently done that with our Wreath Across America ceremonies, hosting the Vietnam Memorial Moving Wall, and this tribute to the 9/11 fallen. The 9/11 Memorial Garden, which we just held the groundbreaking ceremony for, will serve as a shared public space from which to reflect on and build a lasting archive of oral histories. This project affords the community the opportunity to connect with and understand the tragic and heroic events of September 11, 2001 through their neighbors' experiences. This oral history archive and the 9/11 Memorial Garden will serve as a community for generations. Today's ceremony honors the brave first responders from New York City who rushed towards danger and all those who lost their lives in this tragic event. The students in this room were not alive when 9/11 happened, but for the adults in this room, it left an indelible mark. We can all remember where we were when 9/11 happened, and the whole country stopped, mourned, reflected, and came together as a nation under these tragic events. Serving today as our MC is Richard Susie, who retired as the chief of the Cumberland Hill Fire Department. He is also the past president of the New England Association of Fire Chiefs. However, today he currently serves as the executive director of the Rhode Island Association of Fire Chiefs. Chief Susie's career spanned 35 years as the member of the Cumberland Hill Fire Department, and he rose quickly through the ranks. And during that time, Chief Susie always had the safety of his firefighters in mind. In 2001, he was installed as the state-of-the-art ventilation system to remove cancer-causing diesel exhaust fumes from the air as fire apparatus left the station. Under his leadership, the Cumberland Hill Fire Department developed into a well-trained and well-equipped fire department that continues to meet the needs of the community. Today, his leadership extends beyond Cumberland Hill. In the current position, he works to support programs that further the advancement of the fire service, promote education of fire prevention, modernize firefighting apparatus throughout Rhode Island, and protect the health and safety of firefighters and advance the good of our state. On behalf of Ponaganset High School and the Foster Gloucester school system, I welcome you as we honor those who served and those who have fallen in 9/11. Thank you.
Good morning. Let's begin by posting the colors. I'd like to introduce Sergeant Joel Morissette, Patrolman Daniel Legardo, Patrolman Daniel McLaughlin, and Patrolman Daniel Hozempa from the Warren Police Department, Rhode Island. To sing the Star-Spangled Banner, it's my pleasure to introduce the Ponaganset High School Chorus. That was beautiful. Thank you very much. As someone who's been involved in the fire service since 1973, I am so happy to be here with you today. As someone who was deeply affected by 9/11 and by the events of that day, I am truly honored to be in the presence of our special guests today. As a father, as a grandfather, unfortunately, age goes on, and someone who appreciates history, I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you, the students, knowing that bringing this to you furthers the ideal that we will never forget that day. A very big thank you to everyone who put this together, especially social studies teacher and volunteer firefighter, Captain Christopher Stanley of the Warren Fire Department. I was asked to say a few words and give my personal perspective of 9/11. From my perspective, you have to understand that two things were happening in the month before, in August 2001, that affected me. First, members of our fire department in our town went on what we'll call a field trip to FDNY, Fire Department, New York City Fire Department, just weeks before 9/11. Second, our fire department was planning a hazardous materials seminar in September, with one of the instructors scheduled to be a hazmat expert from FDNY. These are the facts. These two things actually happened just weeks prior to 9/11 in our lives. We had just toured quite a few fire stations, museums, fire alarm headquarters, and fire alarm headquarters in Manhattan. We had just spoken to their firefighters and shared stories. I had just spoken to one of their hazardous materials technicians and experts and scheduled him to come to Rhode Island to give a seminar, to teach us what he knew. On 9/11, I was still a pretty new fire chief, just sworn in the previous January. It was a beautiful day. I was working in my office when one of my firefighters came into my office and said, "You better turn on the TV, Chief." I couldn't believe my eyes. I think I was in shock right off the bat, like so many others were. And I finally realized that this was big. It was going to have effects that reached far and wide, lasting effects. Within a couple of hours, after seeing all that happened in that time, we had called a meeting of all public safety officials in our town. I think we had a pretty good idea just how bad this was and that it would affect us and our personnel, even this far away from New York. In the days ahead, we found out that we could never have known just how much we would have been affected. I still have, and occasionally wear on days like today, this brass bracelet with the name of FDNY Battalion Chief John J. Fanning, Hazmat Operations. I had recently spoken to him. He would have been our hazmat instructor in September, had that circumstances been different. He was one of the 343 brave FDNY firefighters who lost their lives on 9/11, and I still have his name on my bracelet. You should know that many of us traveled back to New York City in October 2001, just weeks after, as so many firefighters did from all over the country. We attended funerals for many of those brave firefighters who died that day. All you had to have was your uniform, your badge, and Amtrak let you on the train, free ride to New York City both ways. It was a time of sorrow, anger, frustration, certainly, but it also made us proud to be firefighters. We will absolutely never forget. And thank you for indulging me with those words. Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you, Dr. Barnes, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Renee Plazo, Principal of Ponaganset High School, Amanda Grundle, Vice Principal of Ponaganset High School, Warren Fire Chief James A. Souza, whose members helped to create the living monument and on loan to Ponaganset and Never Forget monument that you see to my left, and all of our invited guests, the faculty, staff, and students who made this tribute possible. So we have an announcement first of a blood drive challenge winner. Ponaganset High School invited the entire community to roll up their sleeves in honor of those who lost their lives 20 years ago in the terrorist attacks of September 11th. The school challenged the local fire and police department members to compete against the student to see who can collect greatest number of pints for the Rhode Island Blood Center. The Gloucester Police Department made a valiant effort, but came up short. The next closest donor was the South Foster Fire Company with 36 donors. Meanwhile, Ponaganset had a total of 57 presenting donors to become the reigning blood drive champions. These donations allowed our communities to help a total of 252 patients and reminded us of the good that occurred in the face of tragedy. Here to accept the plaque is Dr. Renee Palazzo, Principal of Ponaganset High School. All right, I'd like to move on to student reflection. Earlier this year, the Judy, and I hope I get this name right, the Judy Weidel Scholarship Fund challenged you to write a short, powerful reflection about why we should remember 9/11. The contest, like every new contest, was admittedly a bit of an experiment. Beyond the caution to write 500 words, rules were fairly open-ended, and we weren't sure what we would get. Well, they received a great number of entries from students throughout the district. Please know that judging a contest like this is, of course, subjective, especially with the range of content and styles of writing students submitted. But the judges based their decision on the criteria set forth and your ability to develop and communicate a message. They read many, many essays that were primarily research-based, but while these pieces might be well suited for a history class, they weren't exactly the short, powerful reflections that they were looking for. However, the winning essays they selected did and captured the events of the day, while also making the judges pause to truly contemplate upon why September 11th is so profound and must be commemorated. The third place runner-up, Megan Viveros, a junior at Ponaganset High School. She will receive a $100 scholarship for her efforts. Congratulations, Megan. Pleased to announce the second place winner is Isaac Rowe, a senior at Ponaganset High School, and he will receive a $200 scholarship. Isaac, we congratulate you on your reflection. And finally, our first place winner, Annalise Curry, a sophomore at Ponaganset High School. She took the first place, and the title of her essay was Why We Need to Remember 9/11. She will receive a $300 scholarship. Congratulations, Annalise. Wonderful job. We're very happy that she's here to share her reflections with us this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, Annalise Curry.
A passenger plane plunged into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. Black smoke engulfed everything and debris sailed to the ground. People in the area became filled with panic and confusion. Mere minutes later, another plane tore into the side of the South Tower. Even more flaming debris rained down and blanketed the borough. At that moment, it became clear that the United States of America was under attack. When someone refers to 9/11, people automatically associate the event with the phrase never forget. But what does that really mean? Most of us at Ponaganset weren't even alive when the attack took place, yet the phrase was ingrained in us from the time we were old enough to comprehend what happened. Do we fully understand what it means to never forget? On September 11th, 2001, the Twin Towers in New York City were targeted by the terrorist organization Al-Qaeda. The group went to extraordinary lengths to hijack multiple flights throughout the United States and hurl them into the towers, the Pentagon, and a town in Pennsylvania. 2,977 innocent people lost their lives that day. Children, families, travelers, first responders, and numerous others. This is the highest single-day death toll from a terrorist attack on U.S. soil. Those who survived the day the Twin Towers collapsed are considered lucky, but many individuals still suffer from PTSD and other mental health issues from witnessing the trauma, the horrific sights, sounds, and smells forever embedded in their memories. When we honor those we lost during 9/11, we are showing our support to all those affected by the attack. The victims, their families, the police, the Port Authority, and the firefighters. We also owe it to the victims' families to remember the events of that day. They suffered the most that day at the hands of the terrorists. They lost something irreplaceable, their loved ones. It's the least we can do to attempt to fill the empty space in their lives. If we did not show respect and solemnly acknowledge what happened on that day, the scores of lives lost would be in vain. This is especially true for our first responders, who deserve our admiration and gratitude for their heroic actions. They acted courageously and without hesitation at the moment they were called upon. They willingly placed themselves in harm's way and made the and many made the ultimate sacrifice, laying down their lives so their brothers and sisters could live. If we were to forget their sacrifices, it would be a disgrace to their memory. Close your eyes and imagine you are a member of America's bravest, the FDNY. On the morning of September 11th, you wake up as you do every morning and prepare for work, as you have done 100 times before. You say goodbye to your family as you walk out the door and head to the station. The roll call is interrupted by the bells and dispatch relays a call saying that a plane crashed into the North Tower. The rush of adrenaline fills your veins as it is mixed with fear. The sirens scream and horns blare as your mind races. Arriving on scene, you take in the magnitude of events and bear witness to the chaos. People fleeing, fire falling. You are immersed by devastation, yet you are compelled to act. You summon your courage. You enter the building with a calm purpose and an effort to get as many people out as possible. In your attempts, all you see are flames, rubble, people, both on the ground injured and those looking to escape. You also hear the screams and cries of everyone in the building, just wishing to get home to their loved ones. However, as you are doing your job, the tower above you collapses. You are entombed by rubble, enveloped in a black veil, and you can't find a way out except for a distant patch of light and the extended hand of a stranger. The light and open hand fills your heart with a sense of hope, the hope that there is still life beyond the pile of twisted steel and pulverized concrete, the hope that the wounds of our nation will heal quickly and that we recognize the goodness in our fellow people. Alongside hope, the nation learned an important lesson on September 11th. The day revealed that America, no matter what evil our enemies wrought, would rise to the occasion. Even in the face of tragedy and pain, the American spirit blossomed. The attack showed that as selfish and horrible as some people can be, we are called to help those in need. The attack on the U.S. showed just how far hatred can drive people, but the reaction of the American people showed the opposite. It showed that compassion and caring for others above yourself is a strength. We should never forget 9/11 because it helps us take a deeper look at ourselves. The events that transpired on September 11, 2001 changed our way of life. We reacted as a nation with a firm sense of resolve. There was a sense of unity within the country during the aftermath. It left a deep impression on every American, regardless of race, gender, sexuality, or religion. At that moment, simply being an American brought our nation together as we grieved as one people. While younger generations did not experience the event, we must try and carry it with us so we don't forget the sacrifice and unity we shared. We as America's youth often overlook that we are the future of the country. If we do not want to repeat history, we must work to understand exactly how 9/11 unfolded, carry with us the memories of our dead, and put into place the lessons learned from that day. If we continue to educate ourselves and successive generations about 9/11, they too will come to the conclusion that out of devastation comes a unified nation, a nation that stands ready to help each other out of the darkness and towards that patch of light. In this way, they can truly understand what it means to never forget.
Amazing. Very good. Very good, very good. I think we all know why hers was first place. She did an excellent job, just like the other two, I'm sure. Thank you for all for participating. All right. It's time to introduce our special guests. And we do have some special guests. I've spoken to all three of them this morning. Gentlemen all. And I'd like to start with our first guest. I walked over from the parking lot with him this morning. We had a nice talk and got to know each other. He's actually a Rhode Islander now. Been for a while, I think, but he is a Rhode Islander. John Kevin Cully, Captain, retired FDNY. Captain Kevin Cully is a current resident, and it says Charlestown, but I know of speaking to him that he's North Kingstown, Rhode Island. Cully earned his bachelor's degree in biochemistry and was pursuing graduate research in biophysics at Downstate Medical Center. when a friend challenged him to take the New York City firefighter's exam. I can tell you that in 1973 I was not doing biochemistry or postgraduate research in biophysics. So he's a special guy. He joined the FDNY in 1979. He was promoted to lieutenant in 1989 and later to captain. In 1991, he returned as a lieutenant to supervise a platoon leader in the hazardous materials unit. And I came to find out that he knew the gentleman I spoke of, Battalion Chief John Fanning. In 1997, he joined the Mayor's Office of Emergency Management on the 23rd floor of 7 World Trade Center as a fire department captain and citywide emergency coordinator. Today, we would like to present Captain Cully with a plaque recognizing him and thanking him for his service and for being here with us today. Captain Cully. Shirt too. Our next special guest, John Morabito, firefighter, retired, FDNY. I only had a couple minutes to talk with John outside as we were doing the groundbreaking for the garden. I was able to have a little bit of a chance just to give him a challenge coin from our Rhode Island Firefighters Memorial. Wanted him to feel at home here today. John was a 12-year veteran of FDNY, Ladder Company 10, and the only firefighter in the lobby of the South Tower to survive the collapse of the building. Photograph taken by Mary Altaffer captured him weeping moments after the collapse. The picture is easily one of the most recognized images from that day. After his miraculous escape, he found out that his brother, also a firefighter, was still missing. As John walked across the street to get a drink of water from a trickling fire hydrant, he looked up and spotted his brother walking over for a drink as well. Amazing. He lives in Howard Beach, New York. We would also like to present firefighter Morabito with a plaque recognizing him and thanking him for his service and for being here with us today. Firefighter Morabito.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Our keynote address will be given by a man who also survived that awful day. Twice. Lieutenant Joseph Torrillo, retired FDNY. I also had the pleasure of speaking with him, presenting him one of our challenge coins from the Rhode Island Firefighters Memorial, because we do want these gentlemen to feel at home here with us today. Joe Torrillo was a lieutenant with the FDNY and is now retired on disability. He spent the first 15 years of his career in Engine Company 10 across the street from the South Tower World Trade Center. While recuperating from a severe injury on New Year's Eve of 1996, going into 1997, Joe was assigned to convalesce in the Office of Fire Safety Education. Joe worked on a project with Fisher-Price Toys to help design a new children's action figure, which was part of their line of rescue heroes. This new action figure was to be named Billy Blazes and was a likeness of an FDNY firefighter who was an addition to their rescue heroes. In conjunction with the executives of the Fisher-Price Corporation, Joe chose the Fire Zone as the location for the press conference to introduce Billy Blazes. and then keeping with the safety theme, ironically chose the date of September 11th, 2001, because 9/11 is the emergency number in New York. On the way to the press conference that was set for 9 a.m., Joe was about an eighth of a mile away from the World Trade Center when American Airlines Flight 11 struck the North Tower at 8:46 p.m. Fearing for his firefighter brothers in Engine Company 10 and Ladder Company 10 across the street from the towers, Joe diverted to the scene to render assistance. 3 minutes after donning borrowed bunker gear at 9:03 a.m., the second jet flew over Joe's head and slammed into the South Tower. With a background in structural engineering, Joe made an immediate assessment that everyone above the fire was doomed to death and the buildings would collapse. While Joe was involved in the rescue operation, the South Tower fell at 9:59 a.m. Joe was buried alive with a fractured skull, broken ribs, broken arm, crushed spine, and heavy internal bleeding. Shortly after being found alive in the rubble, they removed Joe on a long spine board and placed him on the deck of a boat on the Hudson River with the expectation of getting him to a hospital. As emergency personnel were holding his split scalp together, the North Tower fell and buried Joe alive again. He was alone in the engine room and was declared missing for 3 days. It is my honor to present Lieutenant Joe Torrillo with this plaque recognizing him and all three of our guests for their bravery and sacrifice for being here with us today to give our keynote address. Lieutenant, if you would come up. You're gonna speak now.
I could take the mask off, I guess,
I
right?
think so, yes.
A little difficult speaking with the mask on, so I appreciate you giving me that ability. Boys and girls, and to the faculty and all the students who made today special and honoring me and my brothers from the FDNY, we're obviously very grateful for this opportunity. And I know I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Chris Stanley, who worked so hard since last year, working with one of my agents and trying to get me up here. And this was an opportunity that I wouldn't miss. Like all of us who were survivors, we feel this moral obligation to share our story. And you've heard a little bit about all of us so far, and I'm going to share my story personally with you, not because I'm here to promote myself, but when people hear my story, they want to hear it 100 more times. And for those who haven't heard it, they get angry that I never told them the story. And of course, I want to thank the police officers here who came here to post the colors. We're grateful for that. They're our brothers in blue. And I just want to tell all of you that regardless of what's going on in this country, and I don't make political statements, we all are behind all of you for what you do for this nation. Boys and girls, thank you. Boys and girls, I just want to remind everybody, and again, you know, the United States is going through some difficult times. As we all know, we have a new president, and whether or not you voted for him or whatever, we all get behind that man in the office because we always have to respect the office of the presidency, and we also pray that he has the ability to get our country back in the center of the pedestal where this country really belongs. And as I travel around the country, I get to meet some people, and very few people, they're not really sure if they live in the best country in the world. I don't know what they're so confused about. The United States, being one of the youngest countries in the world, is the country that sets the standard for every other country to measure themselves up against. And some of these people don't believe that. They just can't understand it. And I'm not going to be rude because there's some people here whose parents or yourself might come from another country. So I'll never say that the United States is the greatest country in the world, but I will say there's no other country that has ever done it better than the United States of America. We're a country that opens up its arms to people from all over the globe to come here and share in a life. And I just hope that all of you one day will take a rise to patriotism and take this country into the future where she belongs because of the times that we're up against. And you should never fear what's in the future. The United States has been through tumultuous times ever since we began this country when we fought the British for independence. So, boys and girls, don't ever fear of what we're up against now, because together we'll get it through. On September 11, 2001, 343 firefighters and 60 police officers didn't have any fear when we entered into the Twin Towers and also down in Pennsylvania and in Washington, D.C., when we did what we didn't think we could ever do. The greatest rescue effort that has ever been witnessed in all of history happened that day with fearlessness and commitment and dedication. And I want you, if you honor that, I want you to go into the future, and I want you to do the same thing for your children, our grandchildren, and together we will get through this. I'm currently representing the United States at the trial in Guantanamo, Cuba. I was chosen by the Fire Commissioner to represent the FDNY and the FBI and the Justice Department to represent the United States at the trial against the 5 terrorists that are being held in Guantanamo as I'm giving testimony as I'm speaking. And I promise everybody in the United States that I'm not there for retribution, but I promise you that we're going to come back and we're going to get justice for what they did to us for what we didn't deserve. And I don't want you to go around this world and be angry. Angry gets us nowhere, all right? So that's something that's very important to me. We're not there to crucify them. They already admitted that they did this and that they want their justice by putting themselves to death. But I have to endure this trial, and this trial, I'm told, as of a couple of weeks ago, can go on for the next 15 to 20 years. Unbelievable. We're already 9 years into the pretrial hearings. I might not live to be put on the witness stand, but if I do, I promise you we're going to bring back justice. But on that morning of September 11th, as you heard, I was actually recuperating from another injury. And back in January 2001, I was asked by a company called Fisher-Price Toys to help them develop a new action figure, part of their rescue heroes. Some of you boys and girls might actually have one of them. And they had a whole line of rescue heroes, like a police officer called Jake Justice, his partner, who was a K-9 officer called Bill Barker. Their supervisor was Sergeant Siren. His supervisor was Captain Cuffs. An ambulance attendant called Perry Medic. A lifeguard called Sandy Beach. An astronaut called Roger Houston. A scuba diver called Gil Gripper. They also had a mountain climber called Rocky Canyon. They had a medevac pilot by the name of Hal E. Copter. They had a construction worker called Jack Hammer. And they had a female firefighter called Wendy Waters. And they wanted a New York City firefighter to be their new rescue hero. They would call him Billy Blazes. In January of 2001, I sat down with the Fisher-Price executives, their artists, illustrators, and toy designers, and for a whole day as I was speaking about what a firefighter looks like with his firefighting clothing that we call bunker gear and his air tank and his tools and equipment, the artists and illustrators had easels with art pads and crayons and markers, and as I'm speaking, they were drawing. And at the end of the day, they had this new action figure fully sketched out called Billy Blazes, a New York City firefighter, and I was going to get $1 for every one that was sold around the world. And that money wasn't going to go in my pocket. It was going to support my public education program that I was traveling all over New York City, trying to inspire people to reduce fires and teach people how to survive fires that weren't prevented. So this seemed like a great partnership to support my education program. And they took the artwork and they went to the factory. And in July of 2001, 6 months later, they had the first mold and prototype. And they called us up and they were excited. They wanted to have a meeting. They wanted us to look it over to see if they can put it into mass production. So I set up a meeting with my bosses in the Fire Commission, and we looked over this new action figure, and there were certain things that we thought they should kind of change a little bit and tweak if in fact they wanted him to be a signature New York City firefighter. Not that they were any different or better than any other fireman in the country, but there were certain things that are signature about us. So one of the executives, Lori Orovec, said, "Joe, tell me something that's signature about a New York City firefighter." I said, "Well, Lori, there are certain things I can tell you, and there's certain things I can't tell you." She says, "Well, tell me the things you can tell me." I says, "We have big mustaches and we smoke cigars." She says, well, we're not going to put a cigar on Billy Blazes' hand. So she took out a black Sharpie and she drew a big mustache on Billy Blazes. And she says, Joey needs to look more like you. And they remolded Billy Blazes with the big mustache. And 3 weeks later, we had another meeting and we agreed it can go into mass production. And I have him here today. That was Fisher-Price's new rescue hero, Billy Blazes, a New York City firefighter. Well, we were now excited. It was going into mass production. And Fisher-Price wanted to have a big press conference in New York City. They said, where can we have a press conference? So I had designed a new learning center for children the year before called the Fire Zone. I figured if they were going to have a press conference, I'd get free advertisement for my learning center. I was being a little selfish, wasn't I? I was being self-centered, but I thought this was a great opportunity to introduce the new action figure, New York City firefighter, at the new Children's Fire Safety Learning Center. And they loved that idea. It was very apropos to our project. And they said, okay, we know where we're going to do the press conference. We'll do it at the Fire Zone. They said, when? I said, let's do it in October. And they said, why? I said, October's Fire Prevention Month. It's the longest running health initiative in the world. It goes back to 1871 after the Great Chicago Fire. Every October since is Fire Prevention Month in the United States of America. I thought it was very appropriate and a natural tie to the project, and so did they, but they said it's too close to Christmas and the holiday season. We got to get Billy Blazes on the market a little bit sooner. Well, this was the end of July of 2001 at the meeting. October seemed to be too distant. I couldn't think of another date in between that would be appropriate to introduce the new rescue hero. And I was kind of brainstorming in the meeting, and I said, 911 is the emergency phone number in New York City. Why don't we, for the first time, have a 911-themed safety day and talk about ways to prevent fires and also ways that you could survive a fire that wasn't prevented. And at the same time, we can introduce the new action figure, a New York City firefighter called Billy Blazes, to the market. And they says, oh my God, that is such a great novel idea. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, on 9/11, September 11, 2001, at 9 o'clock in the morning, every TV station, every newspaper reporter was waiting for me to introduce the new rescue hero, Billy Blazes. And as I was leaving for the press conference, the first jet struck the North Tower, and I had become aware of that. And my first thoughts were people like John Morabito, who I had worked with guys like that in Engine Company 10 in that firehouse across the street from the South Tower where I started my career. I was worried about them. I knew they'd be the first ones in that building, and I knew that I had to be there. So I had to make a decision. I had to forego the press conference. I said, the heck with Billy Blazes. This ain't happening today. And I made my way to Engine 10, Ladder 10's firehouse across the street from the South Tower. I took off my dress uniform and borrowed a set of firefighting clothing from Lieutenant Tommy McNamara, who was off duty. And I ran out of the firehouse to the North Tower, but I had to pass the South Tower to get to the North Tower. And as I'm running past the South Tower, I heard a noise, and I looked up, and the second jet came right over my head. And at that point, I realized three things. And I tried to verbalize all these three things to everybody I encountered at the scene. All the firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, police officers. I said, we're under a terrorist attack because there's no way two jets 17 minutes apart would strike two of these towers, and that would be an accident. This is a deliberate act of terrorism, because I was there in 1993 when they bombed the Twin Towers, and we were always told that we'd come back again and try it one more time, and certainly they did 8 years later on September 11, 2001. And the second thing I said, everybody on the top of the building is going to die. I said, we're not going to get to them, and they are not going to get down. And the third thing I said, these buildings are going to collapse. And people looked at me, they thought I was crazy. And all these years later, people always ask me as I travel around the world and speak, they said, why did you say that? How did you know that? Well, boys and girls, I actually went to college for structural engineering and architecture. That's what I was supposed to do in my life. But I took a test for the fire department on a whim. And I did so good, and all my friends failed. And I decided to get sworn into the fire department just to get my friends angry. I was going to get sworn in and resign the next day, and forever and ever I could say I was a New York City firefighter. But when I got sworn in, I decided to go through the academy and just give it a shot to see if I really wanted to be a career. And it was the best decision I had ever made. And when I graduated the training academy. They placed me in that little firehouse right across the street from the Twin Towers. And every day I would look out at those towers as a firefighter and reminisce about the days as an engineering student that I was there studying them in this new novel design back in the 70s. And I knew, boys and girls, that those buildings were doomed to collapse, not so much because of my knowledge as a firefighter, but because of my knowledge as a structural engineering student and an architecture student. But nobody would believe me. And the moral of the story, boys and girls, is this. I always thought that I wasted my time going to college and doing calculus equations and drawing blueprints. I said, why did I even bother going through school? And I never did anything with this degree. But the moral of the story, boys and girls, the education's never wasted, okay? You never know when your education's gonna come back and benefit you, and it came back that day, and I had all that knowledge and those memories of being there that gave me the opportunity to know that those buildings were gonna collapse. And unfortunately, I myself got caught in the collapse, and I was declared dead for 3 days. I actually got buried twice that day. And that night, after midnight, they had called my house to say that I hadn't made it. And so obviously my family was frantic. My friends in the firehouse were crying. They couldn't believe that I had been killed. And then the following morning, ladies and gentlemen, when the sun came up, everybody realized that Superman's not real, Batman and Robin's not real, Spider-Man's not real. The only children's rescue hero that ever came to life was Billy Blazers on the morning of September 11, 2001, when he would let 343 firefighters and 60 police officers march up to heaven together and left me behind. And I struggled with that for so long. I couldn't understand what I was going through. And people said, did you have survivor's guilt? And I said, no. I had something I think that was much different and much worse. I had survivor anger. And I know this is hard to believe, but I'm gonna say it, and it's hard for me to say this. I had survivor's anger. I couldn't understand why God let 343 firefighters and 60 police officers march together, and I wasn't allowed to be with them to ever be known as a hero. And when we talk about the heroes, it was those 343 firefighters and 60 police officers that are the real heroes. I am not a hero. I'm just a survivor, and I was a victim. But what we try to do, like on a day like today, just to keep the memory alive. And boys and girls, I want you, as we leave here today, I may never ever see any of you ever again. I want each and every one of you to be all that you could ever be in this world. You are you, and you are as good as anybody else. All the times in my life when I was your age wanting to be somebody else, what I never knew they wanted to be me, because an original is always better than a copy. I want you to go through this world. I want you to go there with the bravery of a New York City firefighter and face the challenges, and don't be afraid what life is going to give you, because each and every one of you will get over it. And no matter what you've ever been through, boys and girls, I'm going to let you know a secret. There's a reason why the windshield in a car is much bigger than the rearview mirror. What lies ahead for you is going to be more than anything you've ever left behind. So I ask you and I beg you today, the reason why I'm here is because a New York City firefighter has never had a hero. And today, I find heroes in every one of you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's an amazing story and certainly inspiring words for these students. Like I said when I began, I'm inspired because we're here with these students who weren't even born on 9/11, and they're going to take these memories that you just gave them, Lieutenant, and they're going to remember them. And I'm so glad you mentioned about education as well. I'm sure the superintendent and the principal are happy, and all the faculty are happy about that as well, because it is so important. Thank you very, very much. All right, let's see. Well, it's my honor. I'd like to introduce our bagpiper, Christopher Cunningham, who will play the Mermaid Song. The Mermaid Song. Thank you very much, Christopher. Okay, it's time that we recognize and remember Rhode Islanders who we lost in 9/11. Ponaganset students Ali Pezza, Grace McDonough, and Rachel Kellman will now pay tribute to those Rhode Islanders we lost on the September 11th attacks. Please stand in silence and remember all who we've lost. And I believe placing the wreath, I'm sorry. Are you reading the names? You are, okay, good.
David Lawrence Angel.
Carol Marie Bouchard.
Mark Lawrence Charette.
James Edward Hayden.
Amy Nicole Jarrett.
Catherine L. Labori.
Sean M. Nisani.
Renee Tetral Newell.
And Jessica Lee Sachs.
Thank you very much. We have wreaths that we'd like to lay in honor of the 37 fallen Port Authority police officers. I would ask Lieutenant Torrillo to lay the wreath for the 37. In honor of the 23 fallen members of the New York Police Department, Captain Cully, I would ask if you would lay a wreath in their honor. Right next to it. Yes. Where's he going? Bring him back in. Where's he going? Bring him back in. Where'd he go? Go get him. fix that. Let me just tell you, things can go wrong, and firefighters figure it out, and they're going to fix it. I have no doubt. Not a problem. If nothing else, we are patient. In honor of the 343 members of the FDNY, Firefighter Morabito, would you place the wreath, please? And in honor of the 2,977 innocent civilians who fell, Chief James Souza of the Warren Fire Department, would you place the wreath, please? Once again, I'm going to ask our bagpiper, Christopher Cunningham, to play Amazing Grace. Please remain standing. And finally, I'm going to ask Rachel Kellman and Spencer Rialho to play Echo Taps, followed by the Warren Police Department Honor Guard, who will withdraw the colors. Thank you all for being here this morning and never forgetting. Thank you. If you have one more minute, Captain Cully wanted to know if he could speak just for a second about the police officers. They left. You can still talk. Go ahead, Captain. Take the mic.
I can ask them to come in.
I'll go get him.
A short note. I apologize for my gaffe. My fellow firefighters saved the day. Sit down, please. As mentioned earlier, when I was introduced, I was in 7 World Trade Center when this all happened, which is right across the street from the North Tower. And I want to honor some... We've all heard stories, and clearly the FDNY gets a lot of credit for what they had done. Anyway, I was in 7 World Trade Center in the lobby there when this plane hit. Knew immediately that my task was going to be at the incident command post at the lobby of the North Tower. The path I needed to take was through the concourse, and I know not too many people here have ever had the opportunity to be in one of these large buildings, large complexes, but the Trade Center was huge. The concourse is an open area between the North Tower and the South Tower. Below that is for lack of a better word, a shopping center, which I had to travel through, and besides the shopping area was the pathway for the PATH trains, the subway system that serves the New Jersey commuters to get to work at the Trade Center. And I know most of you have never been in a large office building, but the number of people that work there is phenomenal. Something like 30,000 people worked, and I'm sure that number, I'm only guessing, 30,000 or more people were working. It's 8:46 in the morning. The commuters that were arriving on those trains had packed the trains, and the path I was taking to get to the North Tower walked right in front of where the escalators, 11 escalators full of people, were coming into the building, not knowing anything had happened. The only people, besides myself, that knew what was happening were police officers that were assigned to that area. They, I'm sure, picked it up on their radios. Now, this is only 2 or 3 minutes after the impact of the plane, and I'm sure none of them had any direction from anybody, but they immediately began telling people they're not going to work today and to get the heck out of the Trade Center, and directing them away from the concourse area and the buildings that were eventually attacked. And it's my guess, only a guess, that those 4 or 5 officers saved maybe 15,000 people. I'm not sure. I haven't attended a lot of these things, but I haven't heard a lot of stories, that particular story, and I'm sure there's others like it. And I'd just like to recognize today those. Thank you.
Hadn't planned on talking. I try to hide. Out of all the things that I've done here, this is probably the most emotional, most personal. Chief Sousa's here. He's my chief. Before that, we had an extraordinary individual, Al Gallinelli. And That monument to the left of me, that's 20 years old. Warren Fire Department put that together. Some of the members that we had who put it together have deceased, but that monument still stands. That lists every single name of the fire department, police department, Port Authority, and as Al Gallinelli reminds me, Cyrus the search dog. Their names are engraved on that piece of wood. Simple little gift that my town worked hard on. It was put away. Then a flood came, ate away at the wood. Then it put in the closet. We put it together again. We took it out 10 years later, put it in the parade, put it away in the storage closet. And then it got kind of dismantled once again. And a lot of credit goes to Dave Burley, a lieutenant on my company, as we, in the middle of the night, were putting it together, spray painting it. A lot of work, a lot of energy. But that's the thing with firefighters, police, Port Authority. They give themselves, and they don't think about themselves. And I try to live my life the same way and hide in the background. But there are a great number of people here who deserve a lot of credit. Charlie Stockwell, also a volunteer. Eric Rotundo, another volunteer. And the names go on and on and on. You can look in the program. But there are a great number of people. This cannot be done by one individual. It's an idea because sacrifice means something. That tribute outside there in the parking lot means something. Take the opportunity, if you don't get there during class, to stop by and say hello to those 4 firefighters that'll give you the tour. And they'll tell you personally their story. And later today, Firefighter Morabito and Captain Cully will share their stories in an intimate way. I remember what I was doing when the world stopped turning. And that's literal. For almost a week, we did nothing here, transfixed to the television, because our nation was wounded. But little by little, we unified. We took those colors of that flag that shall never run and made sure they stood proud. Almost every American had a flag on the outside of their house that day. These little tributes, whether it's the Vietnam Wall or this particular commemoration of 20 years ago, are important, and we cannot forget. And I don't want to forget anybody that helped out. So thank you to all, Dr. Barnes, Renee Palazzo, but that crew of Charlie and Lisa LaFerrier, and Eric Rotundo, Mr. Martin, Charlie Myers. They gave of themselves this week to put this together. And I thank you for your attention and your love of school and country. God bless you. You may go back to class. Thank you.